This is Twisted Passages with award-winning author Marie Sutro. Now, let's take a deep dive into the dark world of psychological thrillers and meet the authors who created them.
Hello, and welcome to Twisted Passages. I'm your host, Marie Sutro, and today we have extraordinary thriller author Jaclyn Goldis here to talk about her newest release, The Safari. Welcome, Jaclyn.
Thank you so much, Marie. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so very grateful that you wrote this book and that you're here with me to chat about it today. I absolutely loved it. But before we get into the details, can you start listeners off with an overview of what the story is about?
Yeah, of course. So the Safari centers around the Babel family, and Odelia Babel is the matriarch of the family, and she's the CEO of a sustainable fashion company. Think like sustainable Zara. And she's about to marry for the second time to a man who's 25 years younger than her, closer in age to her children. And to their wedding, she invites her children, her daughter-in-law, her grandchild, her best friend, who's also her assistant, and she invites them all to Leopard Sands, which is a luxurious resort in Kruger National Park in South Africa, where her family has been vacationing for a very long time and where they also have a lot of secrets buried. And everyone arrives on safari and for the wedding, but they're not all thrilled to celebrate the happy couple. And the morning before the wedding, Odelia is found brutally murdered after a big fight with her son, Sam. And Sam says he has an ironclad alibi. He was with his twin sister, Bailey, except Bailey has disappeared. And whoever is after the Babel family is not done yet. So they're kind of locked into this lodge and a killer's on the loose and the murder hasn't stopped.
So as you set it up, an amazing locked door mystery set in South Africa out on safari. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
Exactly.
Just the whole setup, when I had heard about it, I thought, oh my God, I absolutely have to read this book because I've never been to South Africa. I've never been on safari. And just that entire setup sounded so good to me as a mystery fan. And you did not disappoint at all.
Oh, thank you. That's truly music to my ears. You know, I went to South Africa on safari almost 10 years ago, and I always thought it would be such a good location for a book, and especially a murder mystery, like the dangerous animals, the poachers. It just feels like it's set up for murder.
It's one of the fun things about locked door mysteries. You kind of get to the essence of people in a locked door mystery because you see them in ways that they might not behave in the public. But the more they're together and the more that group is there, things start to unravel. And again, setting it on safari with these amazing wild animals, and you do get into it. You don't shy away from the wildness of Africa, where there's the raw essence of nature exposed. So I thought it was incredibly powerful the way that you put them in this situation where they had no choice. And we're going to get to the raw essence of everyone, right?
Yes, totally. I think that, like you said, is one of the most fun parts of murder mysteries. It's like in rom-coms, you might get some deep parts, but I don't know, this really brings out like the savage aspects of humanity that are super fun to expose and play with.
Totally fun. And just the pacing, the way you revealed the clues, I thought was very ingenious in many instances, not just the typical run of the mill. It was so much fun. And again, you could do more unique things because of your setting, but you also delved into some deeper issues, like when we talk about the nature of human beings. And one of the things that you get into from a variety of perspectives is the imbalance of power between people and between groups. Was that something that you intended to write about in this story? Because there's quite a few instances between family members, between the family and the employees, and the general setting of South Africa. There's a long, very difficult history of imbalance of power there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I knew I was getting into it just by nature of, like you said, the history of South Africa, setting it up at this luxurious resort where an employee was a main character, and the power imbalance between her and her employers was front and center in the plot. So yeah, I knew I was going into it, but I think from there it just kind of flowed. I didn't exactly know where it was going to take me, but I thought it was like a setup that felt very meaty.
It causes the reader to reflect about a lot of things. And as you're trying to solve this mystery, one of the things that comes up as well is how reliable are all of these characters and what they're telling us. And you get into that issue where different people have different perspectives. The kids all grew up in the same house with the same parents, but everyone kind of has a different experience of that childhood. And they're very, very clearly rooted in their opinions about that. And Odelia herself, as the mother and matriarch, she has her opinions of what it was that somewhat differ. Those points of view, getting into that, was that fun for you in terms of really digging out how so many people had the same experience, but then again, they really didn't?
Oh, it was so fun for me. I think, it's the first time I've really centered a book around a family. I've had family relationships and dynamics in other books, but this was the first that the family was just the crux and the core. And it was really fun for me. And I think it's so true. I remember personally, like my sister and I were in Bali, and we had gone to like a healer together. And we were at the beach after, kind of decompressing from that experience. And we both had these realizations that we saw our childhood in different ways. And it was so interesting because she really didn't see my point of view necessarily. Like, it just wasn't her experience, and vice versa. But it was so cool that we could both, witness each other's kind of having different experiences. And we're only 2 years apart. We had the same childhood, sort of. So I think it was really fun to play with in the book, because I think it's just true of all relationships and all families that everyone is having a different experience at the same time, simultaneously.
And it's interesting the way that you dug into that and really tied back again to imbalance of power, even in those relationships, and how that profoundly impacts people's perceptions. And I wonder sometimes with parents if they're as aware, because I know so many parents who say, oh, I want to spend equally on everybody on their birthdays or on the holidays.
Right.
And I wonder if they're as aware of all the little things that go into imbalance of power.
Wow. No, 100%. I think it's, and I think in particular with this family, what was so fun was that not only is there an imbalance of power in the family relationship, but also it's a family business. So you have that element in the mix, and who controls the purse strings becomes even more critical. Yeah, I thought it was all really fun and just really all amped up the stakes naturally.
I did too. And of course, it casts more suspicion
Yeah.
on who's doing what. Does someone have a grudge from the past or something that's happening to them today? Now, you mentioned that you had gone on safari. Were there any moments for you that were too wild, or did you take to the whole big cat enterprise, to rhinos, to hippos, all of that?
Wow, I loved it. I hadn't, it wasn't on my bucket list per se. I went to South Africa with a friend, and she really wanted to go on safari. And I was like, sure. And it really is one of the most memorable experiences of my life. Wow. It just, I meditated twice a day for over a decade. And I think it's one of the only things I could compare to the experience of meditation, because it just so sticks you in the present moment. You're so highly attuned to what is now. And I loved it. I loved when the animals came close. Like, I wasn't afraid. I mean, I think if they came close in the ways in the book, that would have been a different story. But yeah, there's something magical about the experience. And I hope that I was able to capture some of that magic.
And the way that you delve into human psychology, each character's interaction or perception about nature and the world around them and these animals was very, very interesting. And the way that you tied together that web of complex reactions and pointed out to us as readers kind of the full spectrum of how humans do respond in these situations. Did you kind of see that when you went on safari, or even day to day, hearing how people treat their dogs or their cats or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I knew the characters so well that I knew that they would be different around the safari experience, and I knew maybe how more intuitively. But also, I had a lot of conversations in research for this book with a safari guide. Wow, he helped me so much. Also, he has amazing books that I read, and so I did a lot of research in that way of like how, and asking him how people interact with animals. And also, you know, he also helped me with the more murderous aspects of the plot of like, could this happen, and could this happen in this way? So I think it's like a combination of all those things.
Yeah, it was absolutely just so immersive emotionally. And I almost, like, there were points where I was just like panting and I was like, oh, I need a little breather here. This is intense.
That's the best compliment ever.
Yeah, because you really got me through the looking glass into that other world for sure. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about, happiness. You mentioned Odelia's there for her wedding, and she's pretty well over the moon about her future and about what's going to happen. And I don't know if it ties back again to imbalance of power, because I don't know if sometimes we do this out of, you know, it always comes under the guise of, I love you and I don't want anything bad to happen to you. But sometimes it seems like as humans, we sit in judgment of others and we want to tell them what their happiness should look like. And if they do something that doesn't look like what we think they should be doing, oh, we have all sorts of things to say about it. And we go around trying to undermine that happiness, even though, again, it comes from the guise of, oh, I just want you to be happy and this won't make you happy. Where did that come from for you? And is that something you see that we do as people?
Yeah, I think as humans, we have like a big aspect of us that wants to control our own life, control other people's lives, and think based on our own experiences that we know what would be good for someone else or what would make someone else happy. And I think about it a lot. And I think it was in this, like you said, in this book in particular, it was interesting to play with because there was also the money dynamic that I think is like, you know what's good for someone, and maybe you're controlling their source of money. So it's like you said, the power dynamic also plays into that, and who's letting themselves be controlled and why. And I think all of those were really fun.
And I understand that you have been one of those people that wasn't going to just be pigeonholed in one place, but you've really walked the walk in terms of finding your happiness. And even if it wasn't sitting on your own doorstep, you went outside and you went to go find it. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that does come through a lot in the book about people who feel trapped and seeing the world that they want, but not being willing to go get it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, actually, it's almost 9 years since more than 9 years. 9 years since I landed in Tel Aviv, where I live now, but not over maybe 9.5 years since I left my job as a lawyer. I was a lawyer in the States, and I worked at a big law firm in Chicago for 7.5 years. And then I quit my job the year I would go up for partnership to travel the world and try for my dream, which was writing novels. And it felt crazy at the time when I left that very nice salary and stable career and life into this complete unknown of, I have no idea where I'm going to live or, you know, how I'm going to make money again. And wow, when I reflect on it, it's like I went into a life that's a lot less quote unquote secure, but so much more fulfilling. And yeah, I'm really proud of myself. I don't even want to say it was a hard jump, because I knew it was the right thing. Like, I knew in my soul that's what I had to do. There's a quote I love that's like, you don't leap from A to B, you just leap from A. And I felt that's like what I did. I leapt from A and I had no idea what B was going to look like. And to be frank, I still don't know what B looks like. It's like ever evolving. And sometimes you don't know how it's going to work out, certainly even now. But yeah, I'm so glad I did it.
Well, if it looks like you writing more amazing books like this, I am all for it.
That definitely. Hopefully I will be writing many more books, I hope.
It's interesting when you talk about your own journey, because I think so much for us, irrespective of what culture you're raised in, there is so much around parents coming from a good place, trying, and Odelia does this too, right? Trying to instill kind of the fear of God in their kids, that you've got to do everything you can to survive. And the best way to do that is to insulate yourself.
Yeah.
Money insulates, power insulates, all these things will insulate you. And if you step outside of that, you're walking out into the safari at night. You're walking out.
Totally. Someone said it to me once, and I think it's so true, that when you're making a decision, like you and your parents never have the same like risk mindsets. Like they want you to do something that is less risky. That is just there as parents, like that's what they want for you, but that's not necessarily what's good for you or what's good for your soul. Like you want to take more risks. And so it's like an interesting conundrum, I think, that's fun to play with in family dynamics in the book.
And it's interesting to me too, just in relationships, whether it's parent-child, whether it's friends, because you do show us quite a few different relationships here, whether it's people who are intimate and have romantic relationships, that whole sense of, again, I'll tell you what works, and who's more risk averse, who wants to take risks, who feels that they're changing and maybe blossoming, and are the people with them nurturing that and feeding it, or are they drawing the blinds and say, no, get away from the light?
Yes, totally. I think that's always part of relationships. It's like, are we growing together or are we growing at different paces? And so we're not aligned. Yeah, I enjoyed playing with that also.
Of course, my show never has spoilers, but I have to say, you did such an amazing job wrapping this story. You gave us so many threads that we wanted to explore, so many questions about, as I said, the characters and their motives. Are they growing? Are they not? Are they regressing? And you just wrapped everything up in a beautiful bow. Thank you for doing that. Was that difficult given how many things that you kind of dug up out of the earth in this?
Oh, thank you. I always know where I'm going in a book because I spend a lot of time plotting. So I'm not one of those writers that writes by the seat of my pants. But this book, the ending, when I first wrote it, there was something off about it. And so I really needed to figure out why that was. I won't give spoilers away, but it wasn't really a change. It was like a tweak to the ending that I think really made it stick better, especially with character motivations. But I did know how the other threads were going to wrap up. Not necessarily how I was going to get there, but I knew where I wanted to go. But yeah, I'm glad that it landed for you.
It did. One more quick question about landing. You have traveled a lot and you have had great adventures. What is the one place on the planet that you haven't been to that you absolutely want to go to?
Oh, I know it immediately. Japan. I'm dying to go to Japan. It's like I must go there next. It's my dying to go to place.
I have not been, but it's on my list too. So I totally get it.
Yes. I just hear the most amazing things. Like I want to go with a few weeks and go all over the country. Yeah.
So I'm sorry I said that would be the last question, but I do have to. Now you're just making me ask you another question, Jaclyn. So if you're in Tokyo, would you go for those little coffin type rooms that are just like a bed that you crawl into?
Oh, not unless no. No. I have too much claustrophobia.
Okay. And it's those kind of things that probably make you a great thriller writer.
Oh my gosh. I was just thinking like my mind goes to the place of like, that's probably a great place to set a murder mystery.
So who knows? Our next thriller from Jaclyn may involve someone in one of those little pods.
Yeah. Maybe I need to do it for the research. I don't know.
Yes.
Maybe.
As long as the door is technically unlocked.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I'll just
Okay.
take some pictures and write a few things that come to mind and then jet out.
Yes, yes. It actually would be a fun place to discover a body.
It would be. All right, now I have some ideas to run with.
Okay. It's not good when you get two thriller writer brains together because
Yeah, exactly.
actually there is a last technical question
Yeah.
for your existing fans and for all of the fans who are going to love the safari and want to read everything else that you do. Where is the best place for them to find you?
I am at Jaclyn Goldis on Instagram primarily, and then also jaclyngoldis.com. My website has all my info.
Outstanding. Well, again, amazingly phenomenal read. Anyone who wants to get over to Africa and not have to do the flight time, or if you don't have the budget for it right now, the safari is an absolutely amazing read and one of the best places to go for a really, really thrilling mystery.
Aw, thank you so much.
You are welcome. And thank you for joining me today.
It was truly a joy.
And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Twisted Passages. We hope to see you next time.